Hello, my name is Darian Michael, and this is my PowerPoint presentation over the cultural influences that affect a child's growth, development, and their behaviors. What is culture? Culture is defined as the customary beliefs and social forms, material traits of a religious, racial, or social group. Culture can vary from region to region around the world. Each culture has their own set of beliefs and practices that are passed down from generation to generation. This can be taught consciously or subconsciously and can affect how a child sees themselves or others and can affect the relationship with others as well. What influences their development? How can culture influence the way that they live? Culture can influence their religion, nutrition, if and when they go to school, and the language that they speak. It can also influence their sleep patterns, parenting styles, health, socioeconomic status, and their identity and self-recognition. Let's take a look at religion first. Religion can be taught from parents and can be passed down from generation to generation. Religion can vary from different regions of the world. For instance, a common religion practiced here in America is Christianity or Catholicism. But that doesn't stop people from practicing other religions as well, such as Hinduism and Buddhism. Holidays are affected by cultures and religions too. Common religious holidays include Christmas and Easter, Passover and Yom Kippur, Ramadan, Nirvana Day, and Diwali. Culture influences nutrition as well. It's not common for children in Africa to be dismissed early from school to go home and eat at home. In Japan, they usually have lunches of steamed vegetables and rice, like spinach and mushrooms, and entrees of fish with soy sauce, but they also include fruit and milk. Typical lunch here in America could be a sandwich like peanut butter and jelly, or it could be chicken tenders and macaroni and cheese served with fruit, juice, and milk. In Mexico, it can also be similar to what they serve here in America. In this slide, I have included two separate menus. On the left side is a menu from a school in Mexico that I found online. On the right side, it's a school menu from my daughter's elementary school. You can see that they have some of the same things in the lunches. Next, we'll talk about how culture influences education. Across the majority of the developed world, most countries encourage children to advance past primary school to continue their education, but it is not necessarily required. Many places have some form of schooling, even if the conditions for school are not the best. For example, in Africa, a lot of schoolhouses have dirt floors and no electricity, and they don't have any kind of air conditioning or heating. So school may be influenced on the seasonal weather. School is not mandatory all over the world. In India, 4% of children never start school, and 58% of those that do start school don't complete primary school. In Japan, school attendance is nearly 100% for the first 9 required years. School can be very competitive and is a very important part of Japanese culture. In Afghanistan, during the Taliban's reign, less than 1 million of children attended school. This number increases 6 million, but women's literacy rate is still among the lowest in the world. Culture has a huge impact on language. Multiple cultural influences could mean multiple languages, such as having one parent that speaks one language and another that speaks another language. This could develop a bilingual child. Did you know that there are approximately 7,102 languages spoken around the world? In Asia, there are 2,300 languages. In Africa, there's approximately 2,143 languages. In the Americas, there's 1,060 languages. In the Pacific, there's 1,306 languages. And in Europe, there's 288 languages. Where a child lives can influence the language that they speak. This also influences their grammar and the way they dictate their sentences when they talk. In some cultures, parenting can be relaxed or strict. Some parents engage in practices that others frown upon. While during my research, I found that some areas of the world serve their children alcohol, and that is frowned upon by many parents here in the U.S. There's also some practices, such as it takes a village concept, which are common in cultures where family is highly valued and families are close, such as in Mexico or Brazil. It's not uncommon to find multiple families who live in the same house or on the same street. There's also a cultural influence on the socioeconomic status. There are typically 3 social statuses: upper class, middle class, and lower class. Socioeconomic status can also influence their nutrition and education. For example, a family that is in a poorer status may find it difficult to provide food for their family. They can also find it difficult to pay for their child's education when it comes to books and computers. This slide is about the cultural influences of sleep patterns. Time zones obviously affect different sleep schedules. Some children stay up later to do various activities such as schoolwork, and it's not uncommon for some cultures to have their infants and children sleeping in bed with them. That is typically frowned upon due to the high rate of infant death syndrome. Here's a chart going over how much a child should be sleeping. Infants up from 4 to 12 months old should sleep about 12 to 16 hours per 24-hour time period. Children 1 to 2 years old should be getting 11 to 14 hours per 24-hour time period. Children 3 to 5 years old should be getting 10 to 13 hours per 24-hour time period. Children 6 to 12 should be getting 9 to 12 hours per 24-hour time period. And teenagers from 13 to 18 years old should get 8 to 10 hours per 24 hours. Sometimes this is kind of hard to attain because they do have other things going on, such as schoolwork and sports and extracurricular activities. So sometimes their sleep schedules might suffer. Cultural influences on health. Now this slide has very little information, but that is because I'm going to be talking about most of it. In some areas of the world, it's really hard for people to obtain health care or proper health care and ways to treat diseases and get vaccines. In Africa, they usually don't get the proper care that they need, and they rely on a lot of volunteers to go down and treat children who are sick with incurable diseases, or to operate on whatever they need to be operated on. Another common thing that is going on is the practice of not vaccinating your children, and that is a cultural belief that has been going on for a while, but it has recently been brought to light due to the fact that measles are coming back. They were once believed to be eradicated, but with the increased number of people not vaccinating their children, measles has come back, so that is a cultural practice that is going on here in America and other places in the world. Another thing that culture impacts is the acceptance of a diagnosis, including who should be told when and how, the acceptance of preventative or health promotion measures such as vaccines, prenatal care, birth control, and screening tests. Religion can also have an impact on the preventative measures such as birth control and prenatal care. It's not common for some religions to not use contraceptions, and it's also not common for some religions to shame some people whenever they do get pregnant, like teenagers getting pregnant. Also, the perceptions of death and dying and who should be involved, use of direct versus indirect communication, making or avoiding eye contact can be viewed as rude or polite depending on the culture. Willingness to discuss symptoms with a healthcare provider or an interpreter being present. This can create some boundaries, such as if there's somebody from Mexico who does not speak any English If they come to America and they need to be treated, and if they are unable to communicate what's wrong, then that could provide a barrier or create a barrier that can make it difficult for a healthcare specialist to diagnose them, or it can be difficult for the healthcare specialist to relay what is going on or what their diagnosis or prognosis is if they can't effectively communicate that message. The influence of family dynamics, including traditional gender roles and patterns of support among families. So that is influenced by culture as well. Cultural influences on self-concept and self-identity. Now, it is very common for culture to influence how a person sees themselves. For example, in media, women are portrayed as usually skinny with perfect skin and perfect hair, and this can really impact how a growing up adolescent child sees himself. If they don't look like the society's image of perfect beauty, then they could have a problem with how they see themselves. It can also be portrayed that women are lesser than men, or that men are supposed to behave a certain way, like boys should be boys, and stuff like that. And this culture of a society can really impact how a growing and developing child sees himself. So it's really important that we provide roles that children are seeing women as powerful and men as compassionate. So that way when they grow up, they are able to be that themselves. One of my favorite theories is Yuri Bronfenbrenner's ecologic systems theory. It shows how a child's environment impacts them on a microscopic level and on a bigger macro system level. Every little interaction can influence them in some way. In the microsystem, which is the smallest area of their lives, this has like their family, their daily home life, school and daycare, their small close group knit friends, and the community environment of the child. The mesosystem encompasses the interaction of different microsystems which the developing child finds himself in. So it's the interaction between all those systems. The exosystem is the linkages that may exist between two or more settings, such as like extended family, community health services, the workplace, friends and neighbors. It's stuff that they don't necessarily interact with every single day, but it does affect them. And then the macro system, it's something much larger, like the laws, the customs, the culture, the values of a group of people, like their group of people, that really influences them. So to summarize, cultural affects every aspect of a child's development. It can be on a very small level or a much larger level. Children may follow the cultural upbringing they are exposed to, or they can tweak it to something they relate better to. For example, if they don't agree with the religious practices of their parents, or if their parents just don't agree with how they're growing up, the child may try to find their own way of living and try to find their own cultural norm, so to speak. And each culture has something valuable to teach children and has good intentions for each child. Children are absolutely necessary to our future, and it is important that we teach them that they are important and try to teach them how to be good human beings, and that they can accomplish anything if they put their minds to it. And that is my cultural PowerPoint presentation, and I do apologize for kind of bumbling through, and I do apologize if you heard my dog's paws on the hardwood floor throughout this whole experience. Thank you so much. Enjoy your day.